Hi there, and welcome to the Arterburn Quarantine Chat. It's great to be with you this evening. I hope something I say has meaning. I'm going to take a little bit different approach this evening, and I want to talk to you about my life, the path, and an observation about something that I call transformational giving, and it's not exactly what you might think. In 1965, the path of my life began when my parents went to a Southern Baptist convention meeting, and they came back with this record album. There weren't CDs or tapes or anything, of Gertrude Bahana telling her story, and I probably was so fascinated with it. I probably listened to this album, 100 times. And it was so fascinating, entitled God is Not Dead or Isn't Dead. And she wrote a book entitled The Late Great Liz. Well, what this story is all about is a total and complete transformation of a life. From a Jewish woman to Christian. From a drinking drunk to a sober woman. To an arrogant, extravagant aristocrat raised in the Waldorf Astoria Hotel, to a woman whose palatial mansion as an adult turned into a place where alcoholics were just everywhere, all over, sobering up, drying out. She'd help anyone that she could help. It was a story of selfishness and pride turned into amazing generosity. I've often quoted something from her story. I actually heard her in person one time and got to meet her. But one of the best quotes from it was that in her transformation, she said, as she observed all of these people that were from the street, that normally, she would have looked down on. She said, so I no longer look down on people. But then I realized I only had one more level to go. And that was that I had to work on my tendency to look down on people who look down on people. Isn't that great? Isn't that what we do? I mean, we go a certain level. Anyway, her life was one of great transformation. And it was an example of what I've seen happen in recovery. Now, transformational giving in philanthropy circles usually refers to somebody giving a gift that is so profound, so huge, that an organization is transformed by it. They're never the same. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about giving and the process of recovery and transformation. How a person transforms from one type of giver to another as they transform their whole life. 1977, I entered seminary to study counseling. I was a guest columnist for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. I had some columns entitled Wild Thoughts about Iran or Iraq. I forget which one. Anyway, so my professor was also the dean of the School of Psychology there and counseling, Dean Drakeford. And he was a writer, and he would see my columns in the paper, and I became kind of the pet student there, and I was invited to join other doctoral students as they were studying all of the 12-step self-help movements, including some that had become quite cultic, and what were the elements of transformation in them. And so here I was, I had been fascinated with Gertrude Bahana. Now I go to seminary. The first thing that I'm ever going to deal with and is 12-step and recovery. And I was working in a psychiatric hospital that was converted into an alcohol and drug treatment center. So, eventually I was going to end up working with alcoholics and addicts. And it's just been such a fascinating journey, and I've been so grateful for it. But here's the thing. When recovery occurs, or restoration, or whatever you want to call it, there is a process, and usually I've found the very last area of a person's life that's transformed is in the area of giving, in generosity, charity, things like that. And so, I would just ask you, as I'm talking about this, maybe you could ask yourself, where am I in this transformation process? And I was sharing this just this past weekend with some of our most faithful givers. And so let's see where you are. First of all, when a person begins to see that, I want to give, I want to do something, I want to give back. That's a really good thing. But many times it's kind of a sense of obligation. Like, I could give something back. I've been fortunate. I didn't lose everything. So maybe I could give something back to God or the church or an organization. Kind of obligation. I want to do it, kind of feel obligated. Kind of like, well, the least I could do is give something back. Then that, as restoration occurs, that matures into opportunity. A person goes from obligation to thinking, wow, what an opportunity. I didn't lose everything. I still have something, and I still possess things, and I can give. I can give back. See the difference? Then a lot of times people, when they first start in the recovery process, they have a scarcity mentality. This may be all I ever have. This may not ever get better. Maybe I should invest it or something, or save it and then give one day. But as recovery and restoration occurs, there's an abundance mentality. Boy, my life, well, it's so rich and it's so wonderful compared to the way I was headed. Maybe I could give, because more's got to be on the way. This has just got to be the beginning. And so there's abundance coming. In the beginning, there's a leftover or last dollars mentality. Well, if I have anything left, I'll give that. I want to pay my bills. I want to be responsible. Whatever's left. But we're taught in the Bible that there's this first fruit mentality. It's priority giving. And eventually a person transforms into that. Just like in the old days, first fruits. The vineyard owner would go out, and the best grapes that appeared first, he would harvest those grapes and give those to God. He would sacrifice those grapes, first ones. I mean, a storm could come in the day after he had collected those grapes and harvested them, and he'd be dead. His crops would be dead. But the first fruits would go to God. So it's a different mentality, and it's a progression. And then some people go from, I'm receiving God's blessing and I own them, and so I need to be really smart with them, versus a mentality of, this is all from God. I don't really have rights to it. I want to be owned by God rather than me owning my possessions. Different attitude. Then entitlement, kind of like, well, I'm going to give, but I sure hope they treat me well. I hope they'll call me. I hope they'll thank me. Well, you should expect that from an organization. That's a responsible organization would do that. But as you go, you start to go from, well, at least they can do is call me and thank me, or write me and thank me, to, man, I'm going to give them my finances. I want to give them encouragement. I want to engage with them. I want to see if there's some other way that I could help them. And then in the beginning, there's the belief in the power of money. Wow, this could do amazing things. It's kind of the belief there. But when I truly have transformed, I'm thinking, man, God is the power behind money. God explodes the impact of money when He's behind it. And so I want to give with a pure motive, good steward, but God's the one that's going to do it, not the money. I go from donorship to partnership with my church or an organization. It goes from transactional to relational. I want to be part of it, not just give. And then, the original is, how can the organization, how can that organization and its impact on me could that benefit other people? Because I've been impacted, so I want to help them impact other people. You go from that to, I want to make my mission to impact the organization. So they'll impact more people. And then I'm looking at how they're connecting with me, what they're doing to connect with me. As I mature, I'm thinking of ways to connect the organization with people in my world. Hey, listen to the radio program. Hey, help these folks to do whatever they're doing. And then sometimes people, when they give, they're kind of feeling like they're part owner of the organization, versus what's so wonderful to see is to kind of own the mission of the organization. So rather than think I own the organization, I own the mission, and I'm going to do whatever I can to push that mission forward. And then finally, rather than me wanting to be known and recognized by the organization, I just know that God loves me, He's blessed me, and I just grateful, no matter what happens, that He's chosen me to have something where I could be able to give back. It's called gratitude. And so here's the divine pot of gold, you could say, at the end of the transformed giver's rainbow. Did you get all that? Okay. And it's this, Proverbs 3:13 through 15. And it says this: joyful is the person who finds wisdom, and the one who gains understanding. For wisdom is more profitable than silver, and her wages better than gold. Wisdom more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compete with her. So the restored, the recovering, the transformed, we become wise. Because wisdom, well, that's the thing that can stimulate the giving process. Giving transforms people. I remember Lucy Swindoll saying, I knew when I became a donor, a giver, a person who was generous, that it would change and transform other people. I had no idea that it would transform me. Now, I just hope that's helpful to you. And if you've never really thought about your attitudes about giving, maybe there's something there that would be beneficial to you. Now, you've been hearing me talk about this Bible, Restoration Bible. I'll give you a copy if you'll just email me, stevesocial@newlife.com. I will send you paperback, thick, wonderful Bible. In here, one of the devotionals is the exercise of faith. I want to share that with you. Staying close to Christ. No turning back is the title. From the moment many of his disciples turned back and no longer accompanied him, from that moment, many of his disciples turned back and no longer accompanied him. So Jesus said to the 12, you don't want to go away too, do you? And Simon Peter answered, Lord, to whom will we go? You have the words of eternal life. Now, I've always been fascinated that verse that says that many of the folks turned away from Jesus is John 6:66. It's John 6:66. Anyway, the 3 6s there. I just thought that was fascinating. Here's what the devotional says. Deny yourself, serve others, love your enemies, forgive the people who wrong you. Be generous, turn away from sin, stand against the culture. No wonder Christians are tempted to say, I can't do this. Forget it. Well, the teachings of Jesus are tough and they're confusing. Such feelings aren't new. It's been like this from the beginning. Jesus was metaphorically, he said, I am the bread of life. He then went on to say to his disciples that they needed to eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood. Wow, that sounds pretty morbid. Well, it didn't go over well. The teaching is hard. Who can accept it? The crowd responded. Many of them stopped following. The passage reminds us that walking with Jesus may be hard, but walking away from his death, in everything we learn about the Christian faith, we must consistently come to Jesus. No matter our troubles, fears, or problems, we won't find real life anywhere else. Now just think about that original job description that those disciples responded to. I want you to travel, but don't take your favorite things with you. In fact, don't even take a bag with you. I want you to travel, and by the way, you're going to go to some places, they're going to lock you up. Just because you're following me. They're going to lock you up. And pretty much he says this, internationally, you are going to be some of the most hated people ever. That's the job description. You're going to be mistreated. You're going to be maligned. But I'll tell you what, you're going to experience some of the greatest, most wonderful experiences of your life. You're going to build the kingdom. So I love that. I love the fact that they said yes. And it's no wonder so many said no. I'm hoping and praying that you'll say yes to the Lord. That you would even consider being generous with God. That you would give to the Lord or to His ministry. And if you want information on how to do that with New Life, you go to newlife.com or 1-800-NEW-LIFE. That's how simple it can be. But I hope that you'll make a comment. I don't have time to answer a question today, but I will next time I'm together with you. And I hope that this is going to be a great week for you. I'll be right here, same time tomorrow. Also, don't forget, I'm reading Kirby McCook and the Jesus Chronicles. You can find that on YouTube. God bless you. Hang in there. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE if we can help you. And if you want a copy of the Restoration Bible, it's free. You don't have to pay anything. You just email stevesocial@newlife.com. Give them your address, and we'll get a Bible right out to you. See you next time. Bye-bye.